this fight against terrorism can be successful now and in the future. The next very important picture, during Arab Spring, we were very much afraid that the hero for the young people on the streets of Cairo, of Tunis, and other Arabic cities maybe will be Bin Laden or some other terrorist from Al-Qaeda. Not. Maybe even they didn't say about the heroes, but really it was a big will and wish for democracy, human dignity, and our standards, and not extremist standards. So I think that everything what happened last 10 years was painful, was difficult, created a lot of tensions, created some real dilemmas, because the dilemma how much we should fight against for our security, and how much we can resign of our freedom, and in fact such dilemma, how much freedom, how much security exists, and that is a typical dilemma for contemporary societies and human beings. But I think if you see generally these 10 years, we can say that our political decisions and decisions of George W. Bush and allies of the United States those time, Poland was among these allies, were correct. And if I could go back and be president of Poland once again, what is impossible, because in Poland, like here in the United States, 2 terms, that's his maximum. And I remember my farewell visit to George W. Bush, end of 2005, and he was so kind and asked me, Aleksander, tell me, what idiot prepared such constitution in Poland that you cannot run for 3rd term? And I said, George, be careful with this idiot, because this idiot is sitting in front of you. Because before my presidency, I was a chairman of Constitutional Committee of General Assembly, and I prepared such Polish constitution. But because I love the sense of humor of George W., the problem doesn't exist. We are friends, and that was so nice to meet him again. But what is a reason and what is a sense to develop such activities as Concordia? And I would like, as brief as possible, to tell you that even if our fight against terrorism was to some extent successful, and we have a record of positive changes in this time, we have still a lot of fears, and about these fears I would like to tell you. The first, in my opinion, fear, and can be the driving force of terrorism next years, is today's crisis and very unknown consequences of this crisis which we see now in the United States, in Europe, and in the world. Of course, I'm very much against to compare this crisis with the crisis of 30s. You remember, after crisis of 30s, we had Second World War and the most dramatic time in the history of mankind. I think this situation is not so dramatic now, but I'm sure that still we don't know what kind of consequences we can have after this crisis, because some consequences we will observe for sure. The second, I think what we can see now is a situation of young generation, and I think this young generation, which in some regions is huge. You know, among 300 million Arabs, you have 100 million people in the age 15 to 29, with the highest rate of unemployment, with frustrated, disappointed, but very well interlinked with all possibilities for communication, mobiles, internet, what you want. So I think the problem, and this problem is not only in Arab countries. You have same in Europe. If you see protests of young people on the streets of Madrid, Spain, or the riots in London, if you see the protests in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, if you see this atmosphere, I think one of such next driving force of some instability, tensions, and probably terrorism can be the situation of young generation. Now we have a new description of this new generation without perspective, chances, precariat, not proletariat, but precariat, what shows the generation well educated, but with the lack of perspectives. The next element which we should observe, and there's a likely reason of some kind of terrorism next year, is new technologies and cyber terrorism, what we watched some months ago in Estonia, for example, but what can be the form of terrorism next decades. It's necessary to mention about renaissance of various forms of nationalism in many countries, even very well-developed countries of the world. We have something what I name as egoism, as a national selfishness, what means that it's very difficult to manage such integrated groups like a European Union, for example. And we have, of course, a lot of regions where, which are historically the source of many tensions, but I'm not very optimistic about the future of these regions in visible time, and I think like Middle East, and I think these regions, that is Iran, that is North Korea, that is some other Asian countries or African countries, I think we will have an impact of instability in many regions for this global situation. I'm speaking very brief about these fears and these likely problems. Some of them, they are not likely, they are on the table now. To say that our cooperation, our understanding of the problems is extremely important. And that is my last point. Why Concordia is a good idea and why we should support this idea. And I'm so grateful to you that you participate in this meeting. And I think it's a good beginning for next activities of Concordia. My experience as a politician is very simple. If you want to fight successfully against terrorism, against extremism, against intolerance, against all this xenophobia and other such tragic phenomena, we need two elements. We need solidarity and we need consequence in our fight, in our efforts. And I think Concordia is a good proposal how to use this solidarity in sense internationally, but between players in our countries, in our domestic lives. Because this is not enough to say that politicians should work together and to fight together against all these fears. That is, of course, precondition of the success, no doubt. But we need understanding, mutual understanding and mutual cooperation and mutual fight of business community, media, politicians, non-governmental organizations, citizens, civil society. That sounds good, but it's very difficult to organize such understanding and action and willingness to act. But I'm sure that Concordia is a good example that we can do it. We should go this way, and I'm sure that terrorism is an element of whole history of mankind. But we can fight successfully against terrorism, against xenophobia, against racism, against extremism, against anti-Semitism. We can fight against these evils, and we should do it together. And Concordia is a good platform, good proposal to be more interconnected with mutual understanding and with common, courageous approach to all these problems. Thank you, and Concordia, dear friends. Dear friends, I wish you all the best. As a member of your advisory board, I will support you, and I'm so happy to be invited by you to the next lunch, next time somewhere. Thank you very much.